Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the MC class. See, only 71 members has been joined till now. What about others? Still having lunch? It's already 1-5, but only 72 members has joined till now.
ఆఫ్టర్నూన్ అంటే నిద్రపోతున్నారు మేడం.
Okay, we'll have a review session until everybody comes in. Then we'll start with the present day class once the strength comes on. So in the previous class, we discussed about the MAC motivation to use with the wireless networks or the wireless transmission, and how it has been motivated to get into the wireless transmission, and at the same time, so what are all the problems that could comes with the wireless transmission. So it will be well with the working wired networks and wired transmission media also. But coming to the wireless transmission, what could be the problems that we see in general? So how they could be overcome using in different multiplexing techniques using the MAC as a part of the data link layer, right? So while seeing through the problems, we gone with the hidden terminals and exposure terminals, how they are being causing the collisions and how they are being causing the delays in transmission or the idle stations which are unnecessarily waiting for the transmission, identifying that some carriers are busy in the transmission media and some are going to be hidden by some other transmission ranges so that they couldn't get the signals from the corresponding transmission stations or the base stations, right? In the similar way or in the similar case itself, we have also discussed about the corresponding near and far terminals. So we'll have a glance about that particular near and far terminals, so that we have discussed it in the last class. So as the stations are going to be transmitting with the same power, same transmission power, even though they are going to be transmitting with the same power, one is going to having the same strength, that is very nearby station is having the same transmission area. But whenever the station which is going to be received or the station to receive our signal, which has been some farther than the corresponding nearby or neighboring station, then the corresponding neighboring station is going to be suppressing our transmitting signal strength not to reach the corresponding receiving station. Why? Because that particular receiving station is far away when compared to our neighboring station. And ourselves and the neighboring station is going to have the same transmission power. So that our transmission signal is going to be get suppressed by the transmission strength of the neighboring station. But the station is not able to receive, the station is not the target station of ours, but the target station has been beyond the particular neighboring station. So in between, the particular transmitter which is very nearer to our transmitter is going to be suppressing our corresponding strength of the signal. So that is the effect which will be having the severity in the wireless networks in case of CDMA, that is code division multiple access transmission procedure. In the wireless CDMA procedure, we will have this severe problems like near and far terminals. Because of this nearby terminals, we will have the collisions, we will be having the exposures, and also we will be having the suppression of the signals. And at the same time, far away signals are going to be hiding by the corresponding transmission rate. They won't get the original strength of the signal. Okay, so these are the severe problems that we'll be identifying, and every time this particular power maintenance and the strength maintenance has to be followed by the transmitting stations, taking care of that whether the stations are very nearby or whether they are far by, or whether they are going to be exposure terminals in between the transmission area or the transmission distance, or the receiving station is in any hidden area. All these are to be get considered. Based on that, proper power maintenance and the strength maintenance has to be done from the side of the transmission antenna, right? And in that case, we'll see in different accessing procedures. We've been discussed it now itself. CDMA is going to be facing the severe problem of the far and nearby terminals. We will go through all the accessings. We will go through all the accessing. There is a digital multiplexing techniques where we are going to be implementing different procedures in multiplexing the number of users to get communicate in the transmission media, how they are going to be facing different problems. So in that way, we are having the different categories like SDMA, FDMA, CDMA, and all those things, TDMA. Coming to the SDMA, which already we discussed in the last class, here the space, that is the available space or the available subscribers are going to divide it into the group of radio cells, and those radio cells are going to be served by the sectorized antennas. And these particular sectorized antennas are going to following a particular procedure, whether they has to follow FDM procedure or the TDM procedure or the CDM procedure that will be best suited for the corresponding transmission. So the MAC will decide that which type of accessing has to be followed through, which type of accessing has to be followed through for transmitting our signal from the sender side to the receiver, right? So here within the SDME, the available base station is going to be allowing the multiple subscribers to be accessing with the from a specific base station, right? Coming to the problem that it is going to have, that is nothing but the space division multiplexing is going to be served with the sectorized antennas, and all the users are going to be grouped into the cells. And the unique advantage of this particular procedure is no specific additive equipment or additional equipment is required for multiplexing of the users. All are going to be in general, but only group of users are going to be grouped into a radio cells, and those radio cells will be serving the transmission and receiving of the signals through the sectorized antennas. So among that particular, that is the space couldn't be accommodated with multiple number of users. Okay, the space couldn't be accommodated with a multiple number of users. If the number increases, obviously the signal standards will be getting down. Okay, and coming to the FDMA, right? FDMA. So instead of what is that? That is nothing but in the SDMA, the sectors or the groups or the radio cells will be accommodated with a certain group of users. But whenever the users are going to be increasing in that particular area or in that particular cell area or radio cell area, we couldn't accommodate or we couldn't change the corresponding multiplexing procedure. We couldn't extend the radio cell area, and we couldn't extend the power of the sectorized antennas. So that is the disadvantage of the SDMA. Even though the existing wired multiplexing technique can be implemented with the SDMA, but if the more number of users or the customers are going to be increasing, that couldn't be accommodated by the SDMA. And coming to the frequency division multiplexing. See, this frequency division multiplexing, time division multiplexing, and code division multiplexing can be implemented mutually with each other. They can be implemented mutually with each other. That's why we have been shown in a single plane. That is within a single picture or a depiction. We have seen here like this. The same frequency bands from 1 to n can be adopted with the time division multiplexing among those frequency bands, and the same frequency lines or the same timelines can also be implemented with the code division multiplexing without overlapping with each other. That is nothing but in mutual. FDMA can be used with the TDMA, and TDMA can be used with the CDMA, or FDMA can be used with the CDMA, or CDMA can be used with the TDMA. In that way, we can mutually use these techniques, right? So all these three are mutually dependent on each other or also independent each other. They can be mutually get implemented in combination. Okay, that is the advantage of these three multiplexing techniques. So what happens in this FDMA that we discussed in the last class is each and every user will be allocated with some frequency channel exclusively. Some frequency channel exclusively will be allocated to the particular user. And there will be a particular antenna, or we can say that is a base station, where you are going to transmitting through the satellite. So whenever you are going to be communicating with the satellite, our signal first has to receive by the particular antenna, and from antenna the signal has to reach the satellite. So how the particular satellite is being transmitting the signal to the satellite, and at the same way, whatever the signals that are being transmitting back to this particular antenna has to be get received, and again they has to be retransmitted to the corresponding mobile user. So as this particular antenna is being used for both the receiving and transmission, and at the same time it is being communicating with the satellite also, it will be called as a transponder. Okay, it is going to be transponder. The antenna which is going to be communicating both with the mobile station and also the satellite will be called as the transponder, and it will be useful both for the transmission and also the corresponding reception also. And here you know that each and every frequency user or each and every mobile user is going to be provided with the frequency channel of 30 kilohertz span, less than 30 kilohertz of span, and he is going to be available with the 200 kilohertz of the corresponding bandwidth while transmitting. While transmitting, he will be provided with the 200 kilohertz of bandwidth, and at the same time the channel is able to transmit and at the same time receive on the same frequency band, that is with the available 30 kilohertz itself. With the available 30 kilohertz of frequency band itself, it is able to get and at the send, that is nothing but to transmit and the receive. Both the flow of communication will be done on the same frequency band. For that purpose, each and every channel will be implemented with a procedure called as frequency division multiplexing, FDD, right? So that, and already we discussed about that, the transmission, that is from the mobile to the base, what is called as transponder, and from the transponder to the mobile, right? So in meanwhile, that is while transmitting from mobile to the transponder, transponder to the satellite, satellite to the transponder, and transponder to the corresponding mobile station. So all these are going to be happening within the available frequency band itself, right? So while doing this, it is going to be happening in between the communication between the mobile station with the transponder. Say it is called as a base station now, and the base station is going to be transmitting or communicating with the satellite, and whatever the signals that we are receiving for the mobile station will be first received by this base station from the satellite, and again the base station is going to be transmitting you, retransmitting you the signals again to the mobile station, right? In this way, both the mobile station to base station and base station to mobile station will be happening within the 200 kilohertz of bandwidth and within the 30 kilohertz of the frequency band allocated for your mobile exclusively. That is to and fro communication between the three, that is mobile station, base station, and the satellite, all are going to be working out within the span of the 30 kilohertz channel itself. Right? What are all the disadvantages? And at the same time, the corresponding communication, that is from mobile station to the base station, will be coping with the frequencies called as the uplink frequency spectrum, and whereas from the mobile station, that is the mobile station to the ground station or ground station to the mobile station. Okay, ground station to the satellite will be the uplink frequency, and what is called as satellite to the ground station or the base station will be coping with the downlink frequencies. That is uplinking and downlinking. That is nothing but a to and fro. Both the frequencies are being named as uplink and downlink, and there will be the different ranges within the available frequency band of spectrums. Okay, they will be assigned with different frequency spectrums, and there is a special relationship between the downlink and the uplink frequencies, right? If, for example, if you are using the 890 band, okay, 890 frequency band, that uplink frequency will be for a channel N will be 890 megahertz plus N into 0.2 megahertz of tolerance. Okay, if the uplink frequency has been defined like this, then the downlink frequency should be the uplink frequency value plus the uplink frequency value that has been obtained here plus 45 megahertz. That they should be aparted for that particular distance. They should be aparted with that difference. Until and unless if they have been not aparted for that particular distance, they will be get overlapped. That is uplinking data and also the downlinking data will be getting overlapped. So to avoid that particular overlapping, we have to decide or define the uplinking frequencies and the downlinking frequencies with this particular differences, right? That is what we discussed. Coming to the disadvantages of this FDM. Radio channels are going to be continuously broadcasting for us for 24 hours a day, right? They are going to be broadcasting the radio signals 24 hours a day. And the mobile communication is going to be using that particular radio stations and the radio frequencies once and only once if they are going to be able to raise a call. That is, if you are raising a call, then only you are using your frequency, right? And whenever you are sending a message, then only you are going to using that particular, the moment that you are going to using the corresponding frequency spectrum. So while you are going to be tapping that particular frequency, only a few hours, say for example, in the total day, only a few hours are going to be tapping by you. But in that particular frequency band. So what is the use of other time? What is the use of other time? In the remaining time, the frequency band is going to be remaining idle. In the remaining time, the frequency band is retained to be idle. So that is the main disadvantage of this FDM. Why? Because the particular frequency band is completely assigned to you at a fixed point. So that the frequency band will not be used by any others. You have to use it even when you've been using or not using at all. It will be assigned to you and you have to use that particular one. Nobody are allowed to use that, right? And that particular thing is fixed assignment of the frequencies, no separate, assigning a separate frequency, and obviously no other users are allotted with that particular frequency bands. So once the frequency allotment has been done for all the users, all other users or the users who are being remind with the unassigned frequencies are stable to be unassigned. They will not be using any other frequencies at any cost. So that everybody are going to be in idle. Only there will be a scarcity of the frequency bands. Only the assigned users are able to use, and this will be inflexible in case of this particular fixed assignment of the FDMA. Okay, to overcome that, you are going for the TDMA. You're going for TDMA. So from this particular TDMA, I'll be discussing in this class. When compared to the FDMA, this TDMA is going to be offering you certain flexible methodologies. That is time division, multiple access. That is time division, multiple access is going to give you some offer that is offering a flexible methodologies when compared to the FDMA. So what you are doing is we are providing some synchronization. We are providing some synchronization between the sender and the receiver. Okay, according to the time intervals. According to the time intervals, you are going to providing a particular synchronization procedure between the sender and the receiver, and it will be fixed as according to the FDMA itself. But when slicing the frequency is slicing the time is better than the slicing the frequencies. Slicing the time is better than the slicing the frequencies. That is nothing but listening to different frequencies at different time intervals at the same time is difficult when compared to the listening time intervals at the same frequency band, right? So using the same frequency band, but you are going to implementing the different time intervals so that we can accommodate more number of users. Why? Because in the FDMA, the frequency band is fixed, and that particular user who has been assigned the frequency band is only the sole user of that particular frequency band. When compared to this TDMA, even the frequency band is being used for that, each and every frequency band will be sliced among the time intervals. Okay, that particular time intervals will be used by many number of users depending upon the time slots that are being allocated. So that much number of users are being allocated for the same frequency band, which is very flexible when compared to the FDMA, right? So that particular TDMA. And coming to the variations and variants present in the corresponding TDMA. That is the first one is the fixed TDM. Okay, the simplest procedure of the TDM procedure is the fixed TDM procedure. Here, obviously, as similar to the FDM, the fixed time slots are being given for the users. Fixed time slots will be given for the users. That is the first trial that is being done with the TDM. Okay, that is, this results in the fixed bandwidth and is a typical solution for the wireless phone system. So for the wireless mobile systems and wireless phones, not the mobiles, wireless phone systems, this is the typical solution. That is allocating a particular fixed bandwidth for a fixed time interval for wireless mobile phones. So this is the simple, so that you are going to be having a reserved time slot. Within that particular time slot itself, the mobile user is going to be using that particular thing. Again, the same problem, if the time slot is being allocated for that particular user, if the user is not going to do any call in that particular time slot, obviously that time slot will be again getting useless, isn't it or not? So that again, this will be the problem. But here, wherever there will be a very, what is called as, there will not be any competition and there will not be much of load on the channels, that particular what is called as fixed TDM will be suitable for that environment, right? So the fixed pattern will be assigned by the base station every time. The procedure what you are going to do here is the base station will be allocating the fixed time interval for a particular mobile station, and the mobile station will be what is called as, it's doing its calls in that particular time slot itself, and no other stations are going to be getting collided, and no competition for that particular slides. That is what is called as the particular mobile stations in the corresponding competition. Okay, so this is how what they are doing is. A particular fixed time slots will be allocated for each and every mobile user. See here, within this example, what you are being done with, the frequency band has been divided into totally 24 time slots. For example, say, already we discussed about the GSM TDMA frame, right? So within that, each and every particular frame is going to be carrying 417 microseconds that we know, right? That time slot is going to be the 417 microseconds. Here, what happens here is each and every frame is going to be, and there is each and every channel is going to be allocated with totally 24 time slots, right? 24 time slots, 12 time slots for the downlink and 12 time slots for the uplink frequencies. So there is no specific matter of question of quarreling with each other. All the 12 channels will have the 12 time slots for downlinking, and all the 12 channels will have the 12 uplinking frequencies. They will be solely communicating with each other between the mobiles and also the corresponding transponders. Right. So 417 into 12 for uplink frequencies and 417 into 12. That is for downlink frequencies. That is total the time occupancy of the downlink and uplink frequency of 12 channels. Downlink and uplink frequency of 12 channels. Here 12 users can be accommodated in a frequency band with their individual uplink and downlink frequencies. Even though we have been seeing here as the 24 channels, they are being for only the 12 channels, right? 12 users, that is what I mean is 12 users with 12 uplink frequencies and 12 downlink frequencies, right? So what you are going to do, that is, it is going to be implemented with the multiplexing and duplex channel. We do need here. Why? Because as you have the uplink and downlink frequencies, in the similar way, FDT, as you are going to implementing the frequency division duplexing, as we needed to communicate both with the mobile station and also the base station. Here also, fixed TDM will also having the time division duplexing. As I already told you that two different mobile stations can use the same frequency band without interference, each having their own uplink and downlink frequencies. Here, still it is going to be losing the bandwidth. It's going to be wasting the bandwidth. Why? Because still it is static. Even the 12 mobile users are using with the 8 channels, with the individual own uplink and downlink channels, they have been fixed. Within that particular time slot, no other mobile user comes in and no other mobile user is using that particular time slot. It has been static and inflexible for data communication. So in that case, what we have to overcome and how do we are going to be overcoming that particular wastage of the bandwidth is we can go for demand oriented TDM. That is nothing but allowing the users dynamically, not in a static way. You are allowing the users dynamically. That is, the slots will not be fixed to the particular user at a particular interval of time. So whenever user demands and user wants to use that particular time slot, that particular slot will be allocated for that user. That schemes has to be followed. Right? We will see what are all the other schemes which will be basing on this particular methodology called as connectionless demand-oriented TDMA schemes. What is connectionless demand-oriented TDMA schemes are all going to be overcoming that problem of inflexibility and too static nature, and wasting of the bandwidth can be avoided by using this methodology. That is, dynamically users are being allocating time slots in the TDMA process. So what are all the other methodologies which are being following this particular theory? We'll see, right? So coming to the first implementation, I'm sorry, one second. So the first implementation, which is going to be based upon this particular dynamic requirement or dynamic implementation, is classical Aloha. Classical Aloha is the first implementation or the simple implementation of this particular dynamic requirement, or what is called as dynamic demand of that particular user. So without controlling the medium access, that is nothing but no specific allotment will be there, no specific allotment will be there. Whoever and whenever user wants to send the data, that he is going to be sending the data onto the medium. No specific slots will be there, right? So here we can see that using this particular Aloha method, that is without any control over the transmission signals and the users that can be traveled through the transmission medium, the classical Aloha is been working. They can transmit the data at any time in the transmission media. Here 3 senders are being shown here, and they are been sending their own data on their own cost. Okay, at their required time interval. But here, other than the other, what is called as all these particular transmissions, here these three are going to be get collided with their transmission interval times. And again, these two, right? Why? Because they are being lying into the same interval of times. That is A with B and C. Here, these three transmission packets, and here again A and C are going to be get collided as they are traveling in the same transmission medium, right? So because of this classical aloha, again the collision comes into scene. Why? Because both the senders are going to be, that is A, B, C, are trying to sending parallelly their packets of data in the transmission media without any delay or without any waiting that. Okay, so simply this is the random accessing scheme. Without any controller will be there. Obviously, two or more stations are trying in the same interval. Collision comes into scene again. Okay, so because of this collision, obviously the transmission data will be getting lost because of the classical aloha. So this is going to be get managed by the, and it is going to be left to the higher transmission layers, that is asking for the retransmission and asking for the recorrection of the data or asking for the missing data. That is are all going to be carrying over in that case. That is whenever any system is going to be following the classical aloha, no user is going to be waiting for the idleness of the transmission media. They are simply transmitting their data without considering others. And whenever they are being collided with and they are identifying that they doesn't get the information properly, obviously they will be requesting and they will be just asking their upper layers, that is nothing but the network layers or the data link layers and other parts, just to ask and request the sender to retransmit the data to avoid that particular erroneous data or the missing data or the lost data. Okay, that is the case with the classical aloha, and that is the first implementation where the users are being given a free access for the transmission media, but along with the time slices itself, right? And there comes with the refinement of the classical aloha to avoid some problems with the classical aloha. That is nothing but the slotted aloha. What happens with this time, I mean, what is called as a slotted aloha, as the name implies, the time is going to be get slotted equally. Okay, the time is being slotted equally, and in this particular slotted aloha, every time the sender has to send the data from the starting of the particular slot, only from the starting of the particular slot. But actually I don't know why this particular implementation has been came into existence and how they have been thought of that they can overcome the problems of the what is called as classical aloha. Actually in that particular classical aloha, actually the users are going to be sending their data in their own paths without considering the neighbors and without considering the idleness of the transmission media. But at some moment of time, all are going to be colliding with each other and just losing their information and asking for the higher layers to rectify that particular information, right? But coming to the slotted aloha here, what could be the refinement here is simply they are going to be introducing the time slot, that is sending time slots are being introduced. That is, they are being slotted the time which are being meant for sending the data from the sender side. So what they are doing in the slots is nothing but from the starting of the corresponding slot, from the starting of the corresponding slot only, the user or the sender has to send the data. That is what they are doing here, nothing but from the second that is, for example, in the first slot, sender A has been sent some information, and in the second slot, he can send the information. But after a gap, he is going to be starting. For example, if he is able to start the information at this particular place, in between the second slot, he couldn't do that. From the starting of the second slot itself, he has to start the transmission, or after passing with the second slot at the third starting of the third slot itself, he has to start the transmission. That is the basic principle of this slotted aloha. Okay, that is can only start at the beginning of a time slot as shown in the below. That is, the senders will only be synchronized. Senders will only be synchronized, but they will not be get considered and they will not be get compared with the neighboring channels or the neighboring senders. Just they will be identified that whether they are been sending the data at the start of the corresponding time slot itself. Okay, so but even though they are been sending, they may get collided. For example, sender B and sender C are colliding here, as they are going to be using the same time slot. In the similar way, sender A and sender C are being get collided at this particular time of interval. They have been starting, maybe they may be starting at some other interval, but they are going to be elapsing, or they have been lapsing for some other time of intervals, which are going to be get preoccupied or get collided by some other senders. So that in this case also, that is slotted aloha, even maybe the considered as the refinement of the classical aloha, is also come up with the corresponding problem called as what is collision, right? This collision comes into scene. So, but when compared to the classical aloha, as synchronization is being followed, when compared to the classical aloha, as synchronization from the sender side has been followed, the throughput of the corresponding slotted aloha is being increased to the double of the throughput of the classical aloha. As with the classical aloha, if the throughput is 18%, it will be increased to the 36%. Okay, obviously in the distributed access medium, this aloha principles, that is both the classical aloha and the slotted aloha principles are going to be followed combinedly. Okay, whenever they need it, that is whenever we need a throughput of 36%, then you are going to implement in the slotted aloha. Otherwise, if you need only 18%, it doesn't just care about the throughput. Just simply we should have the dynamic access of the transmission media, then we are going for the classical aloha. In that way, the distributed accessing medium is going to follow in the combination of the slotted and classical aloha, right? And this particular slotted and classical aloha is going to be suitable for the medium whenever there will be the lesser load. Okay, and but we couldn't give the guarantee of the data, right? We cannot give the guarantee of the data. Why? Because of the collisions, we may lose the data. Okay, and at the same time, it is going to be giving you the minimum throughput. 36% is not a good throughput value, but when compared to the classical one, it is going to be getting. So if you are not considering about the throughput value, and if you are not able to guarantee the corresponding data that is being receiving, and you are having only the lesser load to transmit from sender to the receiver, then yes, you can simply use this particular classical and slotted aloha there or not. Okay, and next improvement for this particular PDMA procedure is carrier sense multiple access. Already we discussed about this carrier sense multiple access. Okay, so this particular carrier sense multiple access has been discussed in the previous unit also. So how it has been doing, how it has been sensing the carriers, what do you mean by this, and how it is going to be very varied in its implementation. So the basic aloha has been improvised by sensing the carrier. That is nothing but we are caring about the neighbors here. That is not simply and blindly going into the transmission medium and transmitting our data bytes as we need and as we wish. We are going to be sensing that whether any other channel is going to be transmitting the data in the same carrier frequency that we want to send or in the same interval of time. Okay, so that could be sensed using this particular accessing method. As the name implies, carrier sense multiple access. Multiple users are going to be accessing the medium in the same interval of time, but the carrier frequency that will be used by some other neighbor, okay, will not be used by the same, other users at the same interval of time. Obviously, doesn't know. If the carrier frequency used by one user, that carrier couldn't be used by the other users. But without bothering about that, if you want to try to send that particular data in the same media at the same interval of time, obviously collision comes in. Nobody is going to be getting served and no data will be received by the two users who are being sent in by the two transmitters. Okay, so that is sensing the carrier and accessing the medium, and you are going to be decreasing the probability of collision. We are going to decreasing the probability of collision. And we know already, because of this, what is called as carrier sense multiple accessing, is still going to having certain collision procedures, even though you are going to be sensing, the collision, and you are going to be sensing the carrier and identifying the collision detection. Obviously, we'll have certain problems, what we will discuss it in the last unit. But here, the wireless LANs are going to be still using this particular scheme. And depending upon the what is called as slotted aloha, how the classical aloha are being implemented, depending upon the load and depending upon the characteristic and the specifications that we have to provide, this CSMA is also going to be used by the wireless LANs depending upon the requirement, right? We'll see the variations of this CSMA. The variation is this one persistent CMA. The first one is the one persistent CMA. What CSMA? What happens here? It is the stations sense the carrier and listens that the particular what is called as medium is busy with a particular carrier, it will be waiting and transmitting immediately whenever it identifies that the transmission media or the carrier is idle. If the carrier is idle, it tries to transmit immediately. Otherwise, it has to remain waiting. Okay, and this particular CSME implementation is called as one persistent. That is, the host transmits with a probability of 1 whenever it finds the channel idle. A particular channel is being idle, it's sensed by the particular station, then only it simply sends the data. That is called as one persistent CSME. That is the first category of the CSME methodology or implementation, right? And next one is non-persistent CSME. So here, stations sense the carrier and start sending immediately if the medium is idle. If the medium is busy, the station passes for a random amount of time before sensing the medium again and repeating this pattern. See, in the previous case, that is with the persistent CMA, it is going to be sensing the medium. Once identifies there is a carrier in the medium, then it is going to be remaining idle. That is, stays calm. And whenever it identifies the carrier is idle, then only it will sense the information. That is the one persistent CSMA. And coming to the non-persistent CSMA, as the name implies, it won't be persistent. Why? Because it is not remaining to be idle, and it's not going to be waiting until the carrier is idle. Until the carrier is idle, it is not going to be waiting. For a random interval of time, it is remaining waiting. Okay, once it senses that particular carrier is busy, it is going to be staying calm, or the station is going to be waiting for a random amount of time. After the time expires or the time interval passes on, again it is trying to send that particular busy, that is sensing the carrier again. If the particular passes before sensing the medium again and repeating this pattern without any consideration. Okay, without any consideration, continuously it is going to be sensing the carrier for a random interval of time. A particular random time will be decided for after a particular random time interval expires. Again, the station will be sensing for the idleness of the carrier. That is non-persistent CSMA. And another one is P-persistent CSMA. Here, a probability ratio will be maintained that there is a probability of the channel may get idle. There is a probability of channel may get idle compared with the random interval of time that is been allocated for that particular mobile station. So here, the nodes are going to be sensing the medium, but only transmit with the probability of P, with the station differing to the next slot. That is, the station may transmit the information in that is the station which is transmitting previously with the carrier is assumed to be transmit in the next interval of time. After such an interval of time, it may start, so that we can transmit in that particular interval of time before that station again what is called as poll that particular carrier. That is called as P persistent CSMA, and it is going to be following with a probability of 1 minus P, right? So I will give you the illustration of this P persistent. See, in the one persistent CSMA, sorry. What happens is, right, this is the transmission media. There are number of channels that are transmitting through, and our mobile station senses whether a particular carrier frequency is free or not. The carrier frequency, these are all the different carriers that are being transmitting to the transmission media. So number of mobile stations are being transmitting. Okay, for example, say 3 mobile stations have been transmitting through the transmission media. For example, 4 mobile stations, 3 already been transmitting, and ours is the 4th mobile station which tries to transmitting the information with this particular carrier. Okay, so if the carrier is busy, obviously it has to wait for. So it has to wait, and it will be peeping. It will be waiting for a certain interval of time, and after that again it will sense that whether this carrier is free or not. It will be waiting until this particular carrier gets free, then only it will be sending the information through that particular carrier. This is one persistent CSMA. And another one is P persistent CSMA. What happens here is transmission media is here in the similar way, right? 3 mobile stations already transmitting, transmitting through this transmission media, and our mobile station comes into C now, and it has to use this particular carrier frequency to transmit the data, right? But here it is being busy, right? Here it is being busy. How it is going to be acting in this case, the mobile station, how it is being acting. For example, say this is the timeline. In this time interval, it has been sensed that in this time interval, it has been sensed that the carrier is busy, right? Then once it is in sensed this particular carrier is busy, it will be waiting for a random interval of time. It will be waiting for a random interval of time. And after the timer expires, again, it will peep the carrier if it is busy or not. Okay. So after that, if it is been identified, again, it is busy, it is going to be waiting for another random. Or other, example, at least either it will be waiting for this particular random intervals, or it is going to be taking the probability that, for example, if this particular carrier, if the carrier is idle now, identified it is an idle one in this interval. But even though for a particular moment of time, if the carrier is idle, whether it could use that particular slot to send the data, For this one, to have an assessment of whether the carrier could transmit the data in the next slot or it is taking a break to transmit the data, what this has to be identified is taking the probability that what is the random interval of time and what is the probability of that station to send the data to the next slot of information. What is the probability of that station to send the data in the next slot, and what is the time interval of information. In that case, the probability will be taken in this way, that is 1 minus. It will be each and every time get compared with the corresponding random interval of waiting time. Based on this particular random interval of time and this particular probability time, the mobile station comes into this particular carrier whether to use it or not. So if the random time interval is less than the corresponding probability of using the slot by the old mobile station, then obviously it has to remain wait. Otherwise, if the probability time is greater than or less than the random time, then the corresponding mobile station comes to use this particular carrier. So based on this relationship in between the probability of using the channel by the mobile station or the random waiting of the mobile station, based on this comparison of these two values, the mobile station comes into scene and use that particular carrier after transmitting the data, and again goes back and gives chance to the old mobile station. That is, they are been sharing this particular channel based upon the probability of using the channel for a certain interval of time by calculating the random waiting moment and also the probability of using that particular channel, right? So this is how the P persistent CSMA is going to be used. And already we know about this CSMA with collision avoidance. That is nothing but before detecting the collision detection, that is after the collision is going to be happened and after the collision is going to be happened, after the transmission has been started, before getting into the collision and detecting the particular collision while the transmission, we are going to be avoiding the transmission before the avoidance itself. That is, we are avoiding the collision itself before the transmission starts. That is the CSMA CA. That we are discussed about only the CSMA CD in the last unit, but CSMA CA is there, which is going to avoid in the collision before the transmission itself, which is being used in the wireless LANs following the standard of IEEE 802.1. And this particular thing is exclusively given as a special part in this unit. We'll discuss this technique broadly at that moment. Okay, so here sensing the carrier and following a backing up scheme in order to protect the stations or fairness among the competing stations. That is without allowing the collision to be happen, we are doing justice for all the stations to transmit the data with using this CSMA and collision avoidance. And here a flowchart has been given here, one persistent CSMA and P persistent CSMA. So whenever a channel will be there, packet will be transmitted. If the channel seems to be busy, wait till next slot, otherwise transmitting. If the collision happens, wait for the random delay, otherwise remain idle. This is the one persistent CSMA. And coming to the P persistent CSMA, first the channel will be idle, packet will be sent, seems to be the busy one. Then wait till the next slot. And if not busy, compare if the random value is being assigned to the X, if the X value is probability of using that slot by the next another station. If it is seen to be, that is X value, the random waiting value is less than the probability of using the next slot, then wait for the, then go for the transmission. That is our random waiting time is less when compared to the probability of using by the next station. So that next station comes in the longer delay so that we can use the station for that moment. So you are being transmitting. Otherwise, we have to wait for the next slot. That is the case of P persistent CSMA. That is nothing but you are giving the chance for, or you are giving the sharing of channels whenever there is a chance of breaking in transmission of the stations. That is nothing but channel is not going to be completing owning itself. That is station is not going to be owning the channel for itself for the total complete of transmission. Whenever there will be a break, it will be unused time slot of the channel will be used by the another station which is in wanting. That is the actually the concept of the P persistent CSMA. Okay, that is what here it has been illustrated. I think time is
Ma'am, time up,
okay.
ma'am.
Okay, we'll be discussing with the other schemes in the next class. I'm closing the session. Ready for the next one.